we are live, and it is 4 o'clock. Welcome everyone to our Yom Kippur Mincha or afternoon service. We're glad you could join us once again. We stand as one. At this hour, Israel stands as one in prayer. All Jews on earth unite through memory and hope. A people unafraid, unvanquished, says to God, "This people you have formed still lives to tell your praise, still lives to share this teaching with our youth. Our ancient journey has not reached its end. The faith implanted at our people's birth is realized from age to age, our sacred covenant. This people, few in number, ventured forth to carve a lonely path through wilderness, with dreams of vines and fig trees, justice in the gates, the land at peace. And still we make our way across the desert. This people you have formed still lives to walk before you. Exiled once to Babylon, we learned the unity of God. A second time, dispersed by Rome, we learned that humankind is one. Hear, O Israel, the call still sounds. Eternity is ever present in your midst, a heritage of sacred purpose in your heart. Your past tells a story for all peoples. Your future holds a promise still unfolding. At this hour, Israel stands as one in prayer. All Jews on earth unite through memory and hope. We look at one another and we know who we are. We look to our Creator and we know our strength. In pursuit of truth, this people lives to serve the Most High for the sake of life. Behind us, pain and glory. Before us, holy work. Timeless words command us. Toward eternity we gaze. Adonai svatai tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise.
No. Mincha. Sorry.
It's okay. God and God of the generations before us, may a memory of us ascend and come before you. May it be heard and seen by you, winning your favor and reaching your awareness, together with the memory of our ancestors, the memory of your sacred city, Jerusalem, and the memory of your people, the family of Israel. May we be remembered for safety, well-being, and favor, for love and compassion, for life and for peace on this day of remembrance. You are blessed, Adonai, sovereign, who forgives our failings and pardons the failings of your people, the house of Israel. You banish our guilt from year to year. You reign in majesty over all the earth. You sanctify us, the people Israel, and the day of atonement. And now we're going to transition from the service part to our text study part, where we will be looking at our maftir from the book of Jonah. So I invite you to unmute yourselves as I seek the correct page for me to share with you, and we will begin studying the book of Jonah right away. Okay, let me find it. Okay, hopefully you're seeing a translation of the book of Jonah, which would be good. So this will work a little bit like our usual Torah study, in which I will read and we will talk. I'll read instead of other people just to make it easier on everyone.
Faster.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so we start Jonah with, of course, chapter 1. The word of Adonai came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go at once to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim judgment upon it, for their wickedness has come before me.
Okay.
Jonah, however, started out to flee to Tarshish from Adonai's service. He went down to Jaffa and found a ship going to Tarshish. He paid the fare and went aboard to sail with the others to Tarshish, away from the service of Adonai. But Adonai cast a mighty wind upon the sea, and such a great tempest came upon the sea that the ship was in danger of breaking up. In their fright, the sailors cried out, each to his own god, and they flung the ship's cargo overboard to make it lighter for them. Jonah, meanwhile, had gone down into the hold of the vessel, where he lay down and fell asleep. The captain went over to him and cried out, "How can you be sleeping so soundly? Up, call upon your God. Perhaps the God will be kind to us, and we will not perish." So, Jonah is having his own little experience here. Jonah gets called to serve God, to minister for him, to be a prophet in Nineveh, the capital city of Assyria, which was a major enemy of the kingdom of Judah, and in fact would be the conquerors of the northern kingdom of Israel. So, you're Jonah, and God says to you, go somewhere really far away. Not that far away, actually. Go to Toronto. Toronto's not the capital of Canada. My apologies. Montreal. Is that the capital of Canada? Somebody please tell me the capital of Canada.
Ottawa is the capital.
Ottawa. Thank you.
Sure.
I know all of my state capitals. My foreign country capital is not as good. So go to Ottawa and preach for me. Tell them that they're bad, that they should convert, even though they're your enemies. They're not like you. They're not your people. Nineveh was not full of Israelites or Jewish people. Go to this place and share my word there, because they're bad, and we need somebody over there to tell them what the good way to be is. And instead you say, I cannot possibly do this. I don't want to do it. I have no interest in it. So I'm going to flee. I'm going to get on a plane or a boat, but probably in these days a plane, and I'm going to go to Japan, or even farther. I'm going to go to India. I'm going to go somewhere on the other side of the world just to get away from this mission I've been given. Sound reasonable? Please feel free to unmute yourselves and share your opinions.
Absolutely. Sounds like exactly what I'd do.
Okay, there we go.
I'd be afraid the Ottawans would kill me.
Exactly. Those Ottawans, they've got a lot of spirit. I don't want to say anything bad about people from Ottawa. I'm sure they're lovely people.
And I would definitely take a plane, because then I couldn't be cast into the ocean boat.
Well, sometimes planes, hopefully they don't, but it's happened before. Okay, so that's where we are. The men said to one another, let us cast lots and find out on whose account this misfortune has come upon us. They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. They said to him, tell us, you who have brought this misfortune upon us, what is your business? Where have you come from? What is your country, and of what people are you? I am a Hebrew, he replied. I worship Adonai, the God of heaven, who made both sea and land. The men were greatly terrified, and they asked him, what have you done? And when the men learned that he was fleeing from the service of Adonai, for so he told them, they said to him, what must we do to you to make the sea calm around us? For the sea was growing more and more stormy. Jonah answered, heave me overboard, and the sea will calm down for you. For I know that this terrible storm came upon you on my account. Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to regain the shore, but they could not, for the sea was growing more and more stormy around them. Then they cried out to Adonai, oh, please, Adonai, do not let us perish on account of this man's life. Do not hold us guilty of killing an innocent person. For you, O Adonai, by your will have brought this about. And they heaved Jonah overboard, and the sea stopped raging. The men feared Adonai greatly. They offered a sacrifice to Adonai, and they made vows. Okay. So Jonah was on the ship, told them, okay, it's probably my fault. I did bad. I was supposed to go to Nineveh, and I didn't do that. And they said, well, we don't really want to throw you overboard, because that would probably not work out well for you. So instead, let's anything else? And he says, nope, the only way is you're going to throw me overboard. And they said, God, we're sorry that we're going to throw this guy overboard, but it seems like our last choice. And that's what they did. And they all the rabbis tell us this means they all converted to Judaism. Of course, is probably a different kind of concept at the time. The story of Jonah takes place a very, very long time ago, around the time of about between 6 and 500 BCE.
Jewish, were they the whole crew? The crew was not Jewish.
The crew is not Jewish, not when Jonah got on the boat.
Well, they screamed to Adonai. That's what I mean. Why were they screaming to our God? Why was the crew screaming to Adonai to say?
Oh, because Jonah told them that Adonai was the one responsible. Adonai, my God, that made land and sea.
He says I'm a Hebrew. Right.
And these guys, these sailors, they were all polytheists. So they said, this God, our God, your God, all interchangeable to them at the time. They were happy to pray to any God that was going to save them from this situation.
Jonah sacrificed himself for the benefit of his people, much like Moses sacrificed himself for the benefit of his people as well?
Well, I would say that Jonah wasn't sacrificing himself for the benefit of his people. He was sacrificing himself because he didn't think these people should die on his account. That if God was angry with him, it shouldn't be them who pays for his crime, you could say.
Had Jonah talked to the God before?
Jonah talked with God when God told Jonah that it was time to go to Nineveh.
But he had discussed this. Had he talked to Jonah before?
Yes. Or rather, I wouldn't say God talked to Jonah, but rather, made known to Jonah. That this is what needed to happen. Okay, so Jonah is off the boat. Pass by the Hebrew. Adonai provided a huge fish. Literally, if you look up at the Hebrew, it's a dag gadol, which literally means a big fish, to swallow Jonah. And Jonah remained in the fish's belly. We say a whale these days generally. 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah prayed to Adonai, his God, from the belly of the fish. He said, "In my trouble I called to Adonai, and he answered me. From the belly of Sheol I cried out, and you heard my voice. You cast me into the depths, into the heart of the sea. The floods engulfed me. All your breakers and billows swept over me. I thought I was driven away out of your sight. Would I ever gaze again upon your holy temple?
I gotta go from now.
The waters closed in over me. Deep engulfed me. Weeds twined around my head. I sank to the base of the mountains. The bars of the earth closed upon me forever. Yet you brought my life up from the pit. O Adonai, my God. When my life was ebbing away, I called Adonai to mind, and my prayer came before you into your holy temple. They who cling to empty folly forsake their own welfare, but I, with loud thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will perform. Deliverance is Adonai's. Adonai commanded the fish, and it spewed Jonah out upon dry land. I don't think I have to sum this part up, but does anyone want to recap what happened here in the belly of the fish or the whale?
It sounds like Jonah made an assumption that God was listening to him before God actually, had the fish spit him out.
That's fair. That's fair, I would say.
How long was he in the whale?
3 days, I think it was.
Well, normally aren't they digested by then?
Well, that's a very good scientific question, and were I a scientist, I could answer it for you. As a rabbinical student, what I can tell you is no, apparently not. If God protects you from digestion, you're apparently protected. So God protected him both from digestion and allowed him to live in the belly of this whale. And he prayed to God, as Susan pointed out, without any guarantee that this would work out okay for him. But he he says, okay, right? This is him accepting his calling in a way. He says, okay, I vow I will perform this task which you asked me to do before I tried to run away. You know, deliverance is yours to pick. It's not up to me. It's like the song, and if anybody saw the follow-up to The Prince of Egypt, they made a movie about Joseph called Joseph, King of Dreams. And in it, he sang a song called You Know Better Than I. I think it would probably go pretty well with Jonah as well. Okay, so Jonah out on dry land. The word of Adonai came to Jonah a second time. Go at once to Nineveh, that great city, and proclaim to it what I tell you. Jonah went at once to Nineveh in accordance with God's command. Nineveh was an enormously large city, a 3 days walk across. Jonah started out and made his way into the city the distance of 1 day's walk and proclaimed, 40 days more, and Nineveh shall be overthrown. The people of Nineveh believed God. They proclaimed a fast, and great and small alike put on sackcloth. When the news reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his robe, put on sackcloth, and sat in ashes. And he had the word cried throughout Nineveh, by decree of the king and his nobles, no man or beast of flock or herd shall taste anything. They shall not graze, and they shall not drink water. They shall be covered with sackcloth, man and beast, and shall cry mightily to God. Let everyone turn back from his evil ways and from the injustice of which he is guilty. Who knows but that God may turn and relent, may turn back from his wrath so that we do not perish. God saw what they did, how they were turning back from their evil ways, and God renounced the punishment he had planned to bring upon them and did not carry it out. This is shocking to me on a few levels. Does anybody feel surprised by the turn of events here? What are some few things that happened that were surprising?
Listen to Jonah.
They listened to Jonah. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
He's a guy from this nothing kingdom who couldn't stand up to them. He shows up and he says, my God says you're all going to be done in 40 days.
They listen to him.
There are some strange parallels with the story of Moses. Didn't Moses initially, he didn't refuse, but he was reluctant to go in front of Pharaoh. He comments that he has a speech impediment. It's going to be difficult, but unlike Jonah, he does in fact go. And again, unlike Jonah, they don't immediately, the Pharaoh doesn't immediately say, "Oh, right, I'll pray to your God now," and let the people go and so forth.
Very true. Moses is a little reluctant at first. True. Yeah. Not quite as reluctant as Jonah. No. But also, as you said, not quite as successful as Jonah either.
Exactly. He didn't immediately transform as Jonah did. It's a very strange kind of. In fact, I've read somewhere that some scholars think that the whole thing was meant the story was meant as a satire or some such thing as that. It's a little odd that it even made its way into the canon.
But if it didn't make its way into the canon, we wouldn't have this great story of repentance and the acceptance of God of repentance.
Well, yes, it's fine. I'm not objecting.
Okay, so yes, all of that is true. Anything else surprising?
But I have heard that some scholars believe that the thing was meant as a satire. Do you have any comments on that?
Do I have any comment on whether it was meant as a satire? I don't think it was meant as a satire because I think we're too self-deprecating for that. Because what's the biggest thing here is he goes to talk to people who aren't Jews, who don't know God, who don't spend their days sacrificing to Adonai, our God. He goes to this other people, this enemy people, these people of Nineveh, and they don't become Jews. That doesn't happen. They don't become Israelites. They just understand that what he said is true, and they say, we're going to turn back from all the bad things we're doing. We're doing a bunch of bad stuff. We won't go into it, but we're going to turn back and stop doing it now. Because maybe this guy's telling the truth. Well, they think he's telling the truth, and maybe it'll all work out for us.
And you might say that God didn't harden their hearts.
No, I think that's fair.
Let me interject something. So this is a very kind of dramatic story. And the drama is enhanced by the fact that we don't really learn what happens between Jonah is spit out by the whale, and how does he get to Nineveh, how much time it takes, and this whole thing is left out. It's just like he miraculously appears in Nineveh, still covered with the slime of the fish on him, which I imagine that would be logical in that case. And he must have been a very formidably kind of threatening appearance. And maybe that is why people listen to him, because he was so forceful at that point, by strengthened by God, that he could convince the people in Nineveh that this is serious.
Quite possibly. I would say it's very interesting to me that we have many books in the books of the prophets, many prophets that have messages that they are told to tell the people. Some of them are good messages, most of them are not. And no one is as successful as Jonah. And Jonah isn't even speaking to the Israelites or the Judeans, but rather to the people of Assyria, to the people of Nineveh. How long does it take him to get there? Not exactly sure. He leaves the fish, he goes one day's walk into the city and speaks his message.
What's interesting is that it's, I don't know, the 40 days, because that's very symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
And then also that these people are fasting, and they're putting on sackcloth, which is renouncing like luxury goods and comfort to, I can't think of a better way to explain it, but, to kind of be saved or to not be punished, which is kind of like what we're doing right now.
Yes, absolutely. A big reason why we read it today on Yom Kippur.
But they're not even Jewish, and they're doing this to be saved by Adonai, who's not even their God.
I think that's one of the lessons for us. The Torah tells us over and over that we're a stiff-necked and stubborn people. So the fact that Jonah is the prophet who actually gets results because he's talking to people who aren't the Israelites, it's another example of, see, Jews, why don't you behave?
It is. Thank you, Lacey. It's exactly that. You've got this situation where we keep being told, we the Jewish people keep being told, you just have to listen and do and repent, and then you'll be fine. You will be forgiven, all of that. And here an example plays out in a very short period of time, less than 40 days, in which a people is condemned. They are told so. They listen, they turn back from their ways, they are regretful of it, they promise not to do it anymore, and God remits their punishment, renounces their punishment, and doesn't do that. And for the people of Nineveh to be able to do this is wonderful. And we so often miss the mark so consistently is I see Mike's point that about satire. I don't think it's satire. I think it drives the point home for us that it's more like, why can't you be more like the people? You think you're so special, but why can't you be a little bit more like them?
Well, it's not my point that was satire. I read that somewhere that some scholar speculated.
I think that wasn't my.
We're constantly told that bad things will happen to us if we don't follow the mitzvot, but it's not, and it's not in the heavens. It's right near to us, and so on. Well, but there are 613 commandments, and we are required to observe all of them. And it's not such an easy thing to to become from. That's why most of us aren't, I guess.
It's not an easy thing. You're right. And because we're so prone to mess up, this story also reminds us that if we do teshuvah with intention, we will be forgiven, as we hope to be forgiven this day, this Yom Kippur.
Sam, are the people of Nineveh moving forward on faith? Because again, Noah's telling them that if they don't get their act together, they're going to be punished. And so they get their act together, but how do they know? I mean, there was no punishment that came about, but there may not have been a punishment if they had stayed doing what they had. So is it an act of faith that they give to God and Noah?
I think they take it on faith. It's supposed to be a mirror of the Israelites. After all, we now move to chapter 4 of Jonah, and I think you'll see a little bit more. So moving on, this displeased Jonah greatly. He's so displeased that they actually did what he said. He said he was grieved. He prayed to Adonai, saying, "Oh, Adonai, isn't this just what I said when I was still in my own country? That is why I fled beforehand to Tarshish. For I know that you are a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in kindness, renouncing punishment. Please, Adonai, take my life, for I would rather die than live." Adonai replied, "Are you that deeply upset?" Now Jonah had left the city and found a place east of the city. He made a booth there, sukkah, and sat under it in the shade until he should see what happened to the city. He's going to wait it out. Adonai, our God, provided a ricinus plant, which grew up over Jonah to provide shade for his head and save him from discomfort. Jonah was very happy about the plant. But the next day at dawn, God provided a worm which attacked the plant so that it withered. And when the sun rose, God provided a sultry east wind. The sun beat down on Jonah's head, and he became faint. He begged for death, saying, "I would rather die than live." Then God said to Jonah, "Are you so deeply grieved about the plant?" "Yes," he replied, "so deeply that I want to die." Then Adonai said, "You cared about the plant, which you did not work for and which you did not grow, which appeared overnight and perished overnight. And should not I care about Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not yet know their right hand from their left, and many beasts as well?"
Okay, so the ricinus plant is a poisonous plant. So if Jonah knew that, he just could have made it easy.
I suppose he wasn't eating from the plant, but rather was just using it for its shade. I will admit I know very little about that particular plant, or most plants, really.
It's the castor bean. So, I mean, if it had, fruit on it, it's poisonous and can kill you.
Okay. Well, it seems like it provided both the opportunity for comfort and for potential bad, but it's much like holiness. Yes. Okay. So starting at the beginning of this last thing, the story of Jonah is really concise. And we see here that he's upset. Jonah's upset. He's upset because he doesn't like the Assyrians, and his own people wouldn't listen to him in the first place. And he says, oh, I knew that if they did, that if I went, they would, and they did what you asked, that they would live and that you wouldn't punish them. And he's upset about that. Why do you think that is?
Maybe he doesn't want to be a prophet.
Okay, maybe he doesn't want to be a prophet.
Followed by the whale.
Maybe it's like when your own family won't listen to you, but then these strangers that you think you're better than.
I think it was a matter of he felt he was wasting his time. He knew that if he went there, God was going to forgive them. So why should I go down there and spend all this time saying this stuff if you're just going to forgive them and not punish them anyway?
Right. Interesting. That's a really great point. Part of the answer may come from the story of the plant, in which God's, Jonah is upset that he spent his time, but also that this worked for them. The kingdom of Israel may no longer exist. The kingdom of Judah still does. But you get Jonah here.
A parallel between the shade tree and so that's why he would show a parallel between he cared about the vine and he didn't care about the other that God did. A parallel between the two of them.
Right. He didn't care about thank you, Jimmy. He didn't care about the people of Nineveh, but he did end up caring about this vine. Why? It was selfish. It helped him. The people of Nineveh never did anything for Jonah. But God reminds him, you care so deeply about this plant.
With who?
That you would die for it being gone. But what about all these people in Nineveh? These are people, human beings, and I created them.
Yes.
This is such a different.
Jonah doesn't know what God knows. Jonah doesn't believe these people, what they are doing. He doesn't believe that they are actually going to change. God knows that they will change, but Jonah doesn't know that. And this is why he's upset, because he doesn't know what God knows. At the same time, the fact that he spoke up saved him in a sense that he didn't become an accessory of all those things what were done by these people, all their sins. He would have been helping them if he doesn't go there.
True. Any other final thoughts? Oh, sorry. Continue. Sorry, Dennis. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you didn't.
I'm struck by how different God is from what the God of Sodom is. A completely different God. I mean, he seems very different.
I always think about the God of Noah, because God was like, he saw evil on the earth and decided just to erase everything. And when I see the story of Jonah, it's almost like God has more faith in his creation and people. And he's like, okay, instead of just smiting you, I'm going to go ahead and send someone there to warn you. And I think the reason that it's the people of Nineveh, it's kind of pointing out that, okay, God's forgiveness is not just exclusive to the Hebrews, that all of his children, if they show repentance, he's willing to forgive.
This has a universality about it that is unusual for the Torah.
I agree.
Any final thoughts and comments? Okay. We conclude our Mincha service with Kaddish de Rabbanan, thankful for our study and the opportunity, known as the Rabbi's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Ve'alma divrach yirutei ve'amlich malchutei. V'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam ulamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. La'ela ul'ela mikol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Al Yisrael ve'al Rabbanan ve'al Talmidehon ve'al kol Talmidehon. Diva'ata hadin ve'divachol atar ve'atar. Yehe lechon ulchon shlama rabba china v'chista v'rachamim. V'chayin arachin umzonei revichei ufurkana min kodam avuhon devishmaya ve'ara v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim tovim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Hu ya'aseh v'rachamav. Shalom aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru amen. Thank you.